The Too Tall Sports Podcast is brought to you by Vegas Sports Advantage. Yes, we have our first sponsor. My thanks to them. Clients of Vegas Sports Advantage are winning big in 2021, and you can be a part of the winning too. Become a client today by clicking the link in the description below of the episode or the show notes, wherever you can find the text underneath this episode on your app or on YouTube in the comment section. Use promo code TOOTALL. It's all one word, TOOTALL, Too Tall, and you get 25% off your package thanks to our partnership with Vegas Sports Advantage. They are a bet texting service. They give you tips. They send you the plays right before the game. They're not a sports book. You'll make the plays on your own sports book or own sports betting website. They're just going to text you every day with their best plays. They're killing it this year. So my thanks to Vegas Sports Advantage. I use the service as well. Already made money on it. So I'm a big believer. These guys are doing really good things with their algorithm, and however they figure it out, these guys have the advantage. So that's why they're called Vegas Sports Advantage. Check them out. Use promo code TOOTALL. Welcome back to my latest edition of the 2 cents segment, where I kind of pick one topic a week and do a little monologue rant on it. So I appreciate you joining me for this. This is kind of a new favorite segment of mine, and just trying to give my opinion more for you guys, so you hear more of me and just my thoughts on the sports topics that are big in the landscape of athletics. So this week, I'm having Gus Frerotte on the show. You'll hear his interview next after this. He is a Pittsburgh, aka Western PA native. So I figured the Pirates made a really dumb trade the other day. So I'm going to go ahead and keep it Pittsburgh Central today. And we'll have Gus on in a little bit. But I want to talk about his hometown Pittsburgh Pirates. I've actually renamed them the Pittsburgh Prospects. Oh, you know what? Is it Piss Poor Pirates? I don't know. Either way, a little joke, obviously. But I'm calling them the Pittsburgh Prospects because that's what they've become. When you draft well, but you don't grow that talent for it to blossom into something for you, what are you really doing? I'm going to answer the kind of those questions today of what are the Pirates doing? I made a post on social media about this on my Instagram. You can follow me at Too Tall Sports Podcast. I don't understand drafting well and giving away your players eventually, even if they haven't become an all-star yet, or after they have become an all-star for you, and you just decide we're going to be a minor league feeding system for other teams to sell us their crap or their other prospects, and we give them our best talent because we don't want to pay. So the other day, the Pirates made a trade, and they gave away their all-star second baseman, Adam Frazier. This guy is not leading the team in hits, not only his own division, he's leading Major League Baseball in hits, and they're trading him away. And he's not that expensive at all. For what? To get more prospects? And this is not just one of those, ooh, that's a smart move, kind of get out early, save some salary cap. No, this is who the Pirates are. I would know because I played in the Pirates organization in the minors for a few years. This is a small market, small-minded team. They don't ever go for it. I feel bad for fans in fan bases with teams that don't go for it. The Orlando Magic come to mind. Other teams that just continually sell their players away. Charlotte Hornets. Why can't you draft well, develop your talent, and then it turn into something? Like, for instance, the Chicago Cubs 2016. Most of their players were homegrown, and they developed them into World Series champions. Even though the Astros cheated in 2017, homegrown most of their roster, and they grew those players into a World Series team. Now, who did the Astros have on that roster? Charlie Morton and Garrett Cole, both former Pittsburgh Pirates. Okay. How about the Rays in 2020 going to the World Series? They didn't win, but they got to the World Series. Who was on that roster? Austin Meadows, an all-star for the Pirates a couple years back, and Tyler Glasnow, who's a stud pitcher. He's hurt right now, but he pitched for the Rays in the World Series, former Pittsburgh Pirate. Let me read off to you some other names that the Pittsburgh Pirates have given away. So I'm reading this from Mark Zuckerman. He is a journalist, and he wrote this tweet recently. The Pirates made the playoffs in 2013 and 14 and 15. Since then, they've traded away Garrett Cole, Andrew McCutchen, who, by the way, was an MVP and 5-time All-Star for the Pirates, Starling Marte, All-Star, like I mentioned, Charlie Morton, Tyler Glasnow, Neil Walker, another great second baseman, Mark Malanson. I went to college with Mark Malanson for a couple years when I was at the University of Arizona. We played baseball together. Mark Malanson was a 3-time All-Star as a reliever for the Pirates. He's no longer there. He's on the Padres now, and they're dominating, and he's their closer. Daniel Hudson, Josh Bell. Josh Bell was an all-star for the Pirates. Where is he now? The Nationals. Joe Musgrove. He was a pitcher for the Pirates, and they gave him away to San Diego. Joe Musgrove, I don't know if you remember earlier this year, threw a no-hitter, okay? And he's got a 3.13 ERA right now. He's not just a one-hit wonder. He's dominating. And also Jameson Taillon, they sent away to the Yankees, and he's in their rotation. These are just a few of the names of people the Pirates have traded away. For what? To get younger, to get prospects. But if you're going to get prospects back, aren't you trying to develop them into something? It doesn't seem like they are. I don't know what the Pirates are up to. Why do you keep shedding salary? It's like a race to the lowest salary possible, the lowest payroll you can possibly get. I don't understand this. Even when I was with the Pirates in the minors, I felt like a minor leaguer. And like when I was with other organizations, like the Diamondbacks, for instance, we could wear our, pants at big league length all the way down to your cleats. You didn't have to wear them up at your knees and look like a minor leaguer. Everything that the Pirates do feels like a JV team playing in a varsity league of Major League Baseball. So when I saw this trade, the Frazier trade the other day, I was just like, here we go again. We're recycling our best players and getting back nothing, or we don't know what they are. Potential is nothing, right? We don't know what this is. So I have a hard time. I wanted to go off on the Pirates today, not only because I played for them, and of course I'm bitter they never moved me up to AA, but that's a whole other story. But I'm just looking at this objectively. What are they doing? So I'd like to see a team go for it. And you look at the Padres. A lot of the players the Pirates had are on the Padres now, and they're finally going for it. This is the first year the San Diego Padres have paid into the luxury tax, which, if you don't know what that is, basically there's no salary cap in baseball, but once you get to a certain threshold, you have to start basically paying tax on such a high payroll. It's kind of a penalty for buying your roster. The Yankees are usually doing it. The Red Sox usually do it. The Dodgers are doing it. This is what the big teams do. But this is the first time the Padres are doing it. And they've fleeced the Pirates to get all that talent down to San Diego like they have. And the Rays did it too. So we talk about that Glasnow trade with Austin Meadows. Those are two huge prospects for the Pirates that they gave up on. And they took back Chris Archer, who was good for the Rays at the time, but not really the same guy anymore. So moral of the story is, I don't understand what the Pirates are doing, and I'll never understand a team that never goes for it. So we'll see there's plenty more moves to be made before the deadline. Just wanted to give you my 2 cents on that. Don't understand what the Pirates are doing. Never will. They've been doing this for years. And they're just basically giving away their talent to the teams that go for it. So I'm sorry, Pirates fans, you deserve better. And now let's get to my interview with former NFL quarterback and podcaster, Gus Frerotte. What is up? Thank you for joining me again at the Too Tall Sports Podcast. My guest today is former NFL quarterback. Yes, I said it, my first quarterback, Gus Frerotte. You may remember him with his time in Washington, Minnesota. He's been all over the place, 15 years, 7 different teams, had a great career. He was basically a career backup, but lasted a long time, had a number of starts in the NFL. Most notably, he was known for a funny celebration moment, kinda. He headbutted the padded wall in Washington when he was playing against the Giants and scored a touchdown and kind of got a stinger, almost concussion out of it. So he had to deal with the fallout of that. He's also one of a few quarterbacks that has a 99-yard touchdown pass. Really cool. He was in Minnesota. They were playing the Bears. It was Monday Night Football. It was a really special game. So you guys might remember those 2 plays. But anyway, we talk about his career, University of Tulsa quarterback. He's from Western Pennsylvania, so we talk about that. Great interview with Gus Frerotte and the current NFL quarterbacks today, who he likes, who he liked going against when he was playing. So really cool to talk to Gus. And he has a podcast also called Huddle Up With Gus. So guys, make sure you check that out. As always, you can follow me at Too Tall Sports Podcast. That's on Instagram. On Twitter, it's at Too Tall Sports. If you want to watch the interviews, you can head over to our YouTube channel, Too Tall Sports Podcast. Please subscribe there. Hit the bell notification to get notified every time we drop an episode, which is usually Thursday mornings around 9 a.m. Pacific on YouTube. If you want to listen to the interviews, it's on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. But if you're on Apple and you have a second, please scroll down on the episodes page all the way down toward the bottom. See those 5 stars. If you haven't hit them yet, hit it right now. If you think our show is 5-star worthy, even better, to go a step further, you can leave a comment or a review on Apple Podcasts. That would help us out as well, so we can be in that new and noteworthy section to get some more exposure. So anywhere you can share, like, and comment on the show, that would be awesome, whether it's on social media or on the audio or visual platforms, please do so. Like I mentioned, Spotify, head over there, Too Tall Sports Podcast. We're on Pandora, we're on Amazon Music, Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts, we're probably there. Just type in Too Tall Sports Podcast. And with that, I will give you my interview with Gus Frerotte. Enjoy. I'll see you on the other side. Too Tall Talk. Going crazy. All right, welcome back to the Too Tall Sports Podcast. My next guest has a long intro and deserves it. He's a former NFL quarterback. He spent 15 years in the league, playing for 7 different teams during his career. He was a Pro Bowler with the Washington Redskins at the time football team back in 1996. He's one of a few quarterbacks to complete a record 99-yard touchdown pass, which we'll talk about in a little bit. He spent time as a high school coach and a consultant. And he is the host of the Huddle Up With Gus podcast. He is Gus Frerotte. Thank you, Gus, for being on the show. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Brett. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, definitely. Glad to have you on. I would call you a big name quarterback. So I'm glad that, a notable name to have on the show. So it's cool.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah. It's kind of funny when you get all this gray hair and you're turning 50 this month, it seems a long, long time ago.
And just off the bat, before we get to your background, when you look back at your, 15 years in the league and even coaching and all that stuff, like, did you ever think it would go like that, the way it went?
I don't know. Like, I grew up in a small town. There were really nobody. There were maybe 2 people that played like major college football, and maybe a couple of guys played Major League Baseball, and then like one went to the NFL. So there's not really a lot of people from my area that did that. So you don't really know. And then back in the day, you didn't know what to expect. There was no internet. So you just worked hard, and that's really all I could do. And I just never tried to say that I was going to make the NFL. Every kid has a dream.
Sure.
Right. When you're playing sports, but
right.
You just don't know until you get there.
Right. And you mentioned you're from a small town, so Western Pennsylvania, from what I saw. And I was going to assume before we talked pre-show that you're a huge Steelers fan, but you mentioned you were more of a 70s Steelers fan, of course. So what was it like growing up for you, watching those teams and even the Pirates back in the day when they were on their run in the 70s? What do you remember about Pittsburgh sports when you were a kid?
Well, Pittsburgh sports was great, because that was like the thing on Sundays that everybody watched. You only had a few channels growing up in the 70s, and that was the thing. We'd go play football. I grew up right by the high school football field, and we would go play football in the mornings. You'd either go to church Saturday night or early Sunday morning, so that we'd have that 3-hour window of playing football, and then you got to get home by 1:00 to watch the Steelers play, right? So that was what you did. The Steelers, obviously, they were one of the best teams in the NFL back then. And then getting into the NFL, I'm just not a fan anymore, just because it's a little bittersweet for me, because I tried to be a Steeler. Obviously being from Pittsburgh would have been great, but it didn't happen. And so I'm just more of a fan of maybe some former teams, and I only have a few buddies still playing. We're all way too old to play anymore.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
There's a guy that's way younger than me still playing, but he's in his 17th year, Ryan Fitzpatrick, right?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So Fitzy's, he was in his second year when I met him, and I was like at the end of my career, and it just, it just goes fast, man. It goes really fast.
And you had Fitzy on your podcast too, right?
Oh yeah, couple times. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fitzy is just, he's a wonderful person, a great dad, great husband, and an incredible football player. And he's got thick skin, I think, because of me, because I've played so many jokes on him in my career.
He had kind of a similar career to you, right? Just bounced around a lot, but made an impact pretty much everywhere he's gone. So I wasn't going to talk about Ryan Fitzpatrick, but there you go. Fitz magic, man. He makes it happen sometimes.
I can't wait to see him play. Well, like he's probably ending his career where I started mine. And you're right. Like our careers are so similar. If he would have went back to another team that he originally played for instead of going to Miami, our careers would have been exactly the same.
Yeah.
But he went to a new team. So I played for 7 teams. He's played for now 9, which is incredible. And, I was like one of the only quarterbacks ever to throw a touchdown for 7 teams. He's thrown touchdowns for 9 teams, which is incredible.
Yeah.
So it's just been, we're good friends, and it's crazy how similar our careers were.
Yeah, for sure. And one more thing about the guys, speaking of guys from Pittsburgh, Dan Marino obviously is a notable Pittsburgh quarterback. And of course the Steelers didn't take him. He ends up in Miami, had a long career there. You were talking a little bit pre-show about Dan Marino. When you saw him, especially from your area, what did you think of him?
Well, everybody knew Dan was going to be, you watch him play college football and you watch his release and how he throws the ball and the kind of leader he was. Those are just things that aren't taught, really, like things that he was able to do. He just was given some incredible gifts. And, I think that he was close to everybody in Pittsburgh by going to Pitt. And who knows what happened? Like maybe the Steelers found out, like, hey, Dan was like this, and we're not sure about him, and he might be too much for him to be in his hometown. Like they and the Roonies have been in Pittsburgh forever, so
Right.
They kind of knew everything. And I think that might have been the reason, because in reality, he was the best guy coming out that year, and they should have really. I mean, just if he would have been a Steeler, it would have been unreal.
Yeah, I agree. He would have had a hell of a career.
He might have been partying at Pitt every day too.
Yeah.
It might not have been good.
Right, that's true. I want to get back to your younger years. So I heard a story from one of your podcasts recently that you said when you were a young kid, you broke your foot and your dad said something to you about just play through it. Doesn't matter. What do you remember about that? Especially, or maybe the mindset of growing up where you were?
Well, there's a book that came out and talked about Western Pennsylvania quarterbacks and what makes them so tough. And every story is about our dads, right? Our dads were always tough. Most of them were mill guys, or didn't work 9-to-5 jobs. They just worked all the time. They never stopped. My dad was one of 15 kids, and he was a mill guy, worked there for 42 years, and was tough as nails, and it didn't matter about the money. He just said, look, you have to have pride. You have to be proud. Our yard was clean. Our house was clean all the time. He took care of everything, and we had nothing. Like he said, you don't have to have money to work hard and, have respect for everything. And so I think for me as a kid, when he talked, you kind of listened. And he was a big guy. I was in 8th grade trying out for the football team. First practice, hurt my foot. And I remember saying, I got to go to the hospital. He's like, no, you don't. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, I just bought you those cleats. We're not using them this year because next year your feet will be way too big and they won't fit you. So you're playing football, just tie your shoe tighter. And that's what I did the whole season, and played with a broken foot through 8th grade. And, you just learn to be tough. I mean, I saw that guy take a chainsaw on his forearm and wrap it up with a towel and say, we're going to finish our work first and then go to the hospital.
That's insane.
Yeah. I mean, it was just a different, he had some loves in his life. Like he didn't do much, but like he had apple trees. We must have had 25 apple trees in our yard. He loved it. But he would go around and spray the trees so that they wouldn't get bugs and all that. And we always had beautiful fruit on the trees.
Yeah.
But he got everything from PPG. Everything we owned said PPG, which was Pittsburgh Plate Glass, the mill he worked for. And he would fill a bucket up, and he got this sprayer. He brought everything from work, and he put all these chemicals in his bucket, right? And he put long sleeves on. He put like a bandana on. You could just see his eyes, he had everything else. And he'd go, hey, carry this bucket around me. And I'd be in shorts and a t-shirt behind him. And all the chemicals are coming on me and not him. And who knows, like, he didn't even think about that. He was protecting himself, didn't care about me. But we had great apples that summer. That's all I knew.
There you go. That's what matters. I saw when you were in high school, I think you said you really didn't throw that much. So you're a high school quarterback, maybe not getting a lot of exposure because your offense wasn't geared toward throwing. What do you remember about your high school days and the kind of quarterback you were or were not allowed to be, I guess, at that school?
Well, I mean, it's kind of an insane story because in ninth grade, I tackled somebody with my head down and broke my neck. So I didn't play football for 2 years, ninth grade and 10th grade. And then the summer after my 10th grade year, my wife's my wife, her dad was the high school coach at the kind of Katanning of the other school. He came to my high school and just said, come out and help us. You know, I went out, was like painting the bleachers. My dad was always a big supporter of our high school, you know, doing stuff in the weight room and all that. And my dad's just like, just try it. My mom didn't want me to play anymore. And then we ran the wing T, you know, in high school. Like, you're not throwing the ball a bunch, you know, it's running the football, eating the clock up. So in 11th grade, all I did was play quarterback and just handed it off basically and threw it maybe 10 times. And then in my senior year, we threw it a lot more, but not that much, you know, maybe 40 times. And just then I played defense again. So I had all this crazy adversity, never played quarterback till I was a junior in high school. And so I tell kids that story is like, you don't know how it's going to be written for you. And the only thing you can do is, you know, get out of bed every day, bust your butt, work hard, have fun doing it. And, you know, usually good things will turn out.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. It's a great message. So how does a kid from Western PA end up at the University of Tulsa?
Well, this is crazy. Like, it's so far away. It's so different. Like Western PA, even though I grew up in the country, it's still not like cowboy country. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not like Tulsa. And so I go to Tulsa and it's literally like cowboys, like guys in chaps and boots and big belt buckles, cowboy hats, like stuff I've never seen before. But we had a coach from Pittsburgh that was our offensive line coach, and he recruited Western PA. So I actually graduated with about 12 kids from Western PA. So we had our own little group and our own little niche at Tulsa, and we would hang out all the time. My roommate was from a high school that was probably, you know, 15 minutes from my high school. And this coach would recruit the area. So I had a lot of kids from Western PA, and it made it really nice because we drove all the time. You know, it's 1,000 miles from Pittsburgh, and we would just get in the car and go. And, you know, we all had fun. We're all, you know, they were all just great guys. And that's how you get to Tulsa from Pittsburgh.
That's crazy. Well, smart guy to get the Western Pennsylvania football players.
Yeah, you know, he knew, like he played at Penn State.
Okay.
He coached there for a little bit, and then he knew the area. So he recruited Coach Thomas. His name was Mark Thomas. He recruited Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, kind of all of Pennsylvania, and then Canada. So he got all these kind of obscure guys because at Tulsa, you know, we had big schools. We had Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Arkansas, and then in Texas, they weren't coming to Tulsa.
No.
Right. So we kind of got all the leftovers of all those schools, which wasn't a bad thing. A lot of them were really good football players, but the top guys weren't coming to Tulsa usually.
Right.
And so like if the problem was if somebody got hurt on our team, the backup was not like the same caliber, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like if our left tackle went down, the next guy was like a freshman who never played before, then, you know, you're getting your face, you know, pelted into the ground every day.
Sure. No, I totally get that. You actually had a ton of success at Tulsa. I saw you're second all time in passing. What sticks out to you most about your career as a quarterback? Now you're getting to show your skills in college.
Well, it's just so different than high school for me. You know, like these kids today, they're groomed from the time they're 10 years old on how to throw the football.
Right.
I kind of learned on the fly. Like, yeah, my high school coach, Harry Beckwith, my wife's dad, who's since passed, but you know, he taught me, you know, how to keep your arm up and, you know, just do a lot of the mechanics right, but never really had to read a defense or, you know, like these kids are taught that stuff. They're throwing 7-on-7. They're doing all these things. And I had to learn that my freshman year, a lot of that. And so I was behind the curve in a sense. But just like I said, hard work and just being able to, whip the football around wherever I wanted it. I didn't have a problem with any throw. So that helped me get to where I need. Plus, it was tough. I was considered tough that, you take a hit, you can get back up.
Yeah. No, obviously you had a ton of success there. It's about, I think it was 1994. So the Washington Redskins took a flyer on you in the 7th round, basically, right? I mean, what do you remember about the draft process? And did you think you're going to get drafted? What were you hearing leading up to it?
Well, I didn't really think anything of it. After my senior year of football, I took an internship back in Pittsburgh with the Pirates. I actually worked with Dr. Warren Sipp in the weight room. And Warren, all the front office people would come in and I'd work them out. I was in just find an intern because my wife went to Pitt.
Okay.
So I wanted to be with her. And so I moved back to Pittsburgh and just saying whatever happens. I don't know.
Sure.
Well, most guys have like a pro day. You know what I mean? Like they have a pro day at school and they get all. I didn't have that. I'm working out at Three River Stadium where the Pirates were playing. And I had a receiver that never could catch. Like he never played football. This kid that was working out, he was a bodybuilder guy and that's who was running my route. So all these coaches, I got an invite to the combine, went to the combine, did that. And then a lot of interest started happening after that. They saw my arm strength and what I could do talking to me. And then the coaches started coming to Pittsburgh after that. And you get an agent and the agent calls around, they know what to do. So I had an agent and he said, I think this, I think you're going to get drafted, which you're all excited about. And I had a big party at home. First day, didn't get drafted. Second day, I was only the fifth quarterback taken in the draft, but I was in the 7th round,
right.
So it's crazy. And so you're drafted in the 7th round and it's super exciting. All your family's there. And, you're just this kid from this little hometown with only 5,000 people in it and you get drafted in the NFL. It's a pretty big deal.
That is a huge deal. No, that's definitely a great accomplishment. I'm sure your whole family was excited and all that stuff. When you went to your first NFL training camp, what was like your welcome to the NFL moment, you think?
Oh, that's easy. So I've always been friends with all linemen, right? Some guys go out with the receivers and all, everybody has your different groups, but I've always been friends with the linemen. Like those are the guys up front with you, So anytime I went out, I went with the linemen. So I'm in training camp my first year, and the linemen with Washington, they were called the Hogs, right? So they took me out to a bar. They liked me for some reason. They go, "Hey, Brooke, let's go. We're going to a bar. You want to go?" You're not going to say no. Like those guys. It's all these famous linemen. 3 of them are Hall of Famers now. So let's go. Right. So I go with them and it's like getting close to meeting. We got a meeting coming up. Say it's 5:00. Right. It's like 4:40, but we're only 10 minutes. They're used to it. They've been doing this for years. They know the whole routine. I have no idea. Yeah. I'm sweating, but I'm not saying anything because what am I going to go up to the lineman like, I'm going to be late? They're like, shut up. You know what I mean? So they go, "Hey, Rook, pay the bill and we'll see you back at the meeting." And I'm like, pay the bill? I don't have any money. So I go up, I do a deal with the bartender. I said, "Look, then my next check, I'll bring it in." He's like, "Yeah, you're good for it. Like, well, I know you'll come back because you're with these guys, right?" Because they've been going there for years.
Right.
And so they've all left. I pay the bill or work out the deal. And then I head back and I'm super nervous because it's like 1 minute to the meeting time. And I walk into the meeting and North Turner's their head coach. I'm a rookie. I'm 7th round pick. We drafted Heath Schuler, who's a 1st round pick. And I'm like, oh God, I'm going to get cut. Like, this is it. So I walk in, everybody's in their seats and North goes, "You're late." And the linemen go, "Don't worry, coach. He was with us. He's okay." That was it. Never, not another word said. So that was my training. Like, obviously there were other stories, but that was like my moment that I knew, like, okay, these guys like me.
That's pretty cool because, yeah, you're not the first rounder. So to get the respect of the linemen already, or for them to vouch for you, like they didn't have to do that. They could have easily thrown you under the bus.
Oh yeah, they could
Yeah.
have just said, yeah, that, and got me out of there. But for some reason they all like me, and I got along with all of them.
Yeah, I think that was definitely a good sign. So you got to start 4 games as a rookie. I saw 11 games your second season. Then you kind of had your breakout year in 1996 where you started all 16 games, made the Pro Bowl. Do you think it's that 3-year process of becoming an NFL quarterback? Does it take that long where you really felt it, like the speed of the game, everything? So what changed for you in that third year?
Well, I don't know how much you saw the story. So like Heath Schuler was the number 1 pick. I'm
Right.
the 7th round pick.
Yeah.
So Heath is going to get, because he's the number 1 pick, he's going to get every opportunity.
Yeah.
But what my opportunity came was my rookie year at training camp when he held out and I got all his reps.
Yeah.
So I'm a 7th rounder. The first rounder basically is the guy they want to play because that's who they invested in. But I'm showing signs of, maybe being better. So it goes through the season. John Freeze, who's our other quarterback, he was an older veteran, and it's a new team. So Heath was hurt. Norv basically comes in and says, didn't tell me beforehand. We're in a team meeting in the morning, just comes in and says, hey, we got a new quarterback starting this week. Gus is going to be our starter. That's the first time I heard it in the team meeting, in my chair in the front row. And I'm like, I don't even know what to do. And there's John sitting beside me who were friends. So he's not starting, but I'm going to start. And it's crazy. We're playing the Colts in Indianapolis. Go there, throw 4 touchdowns, had a great game. And then, but even with all of that, showing that, like, play 4 games, at some point Heath has got to come back, right? That's their first guy. That's who they got all their money invested in. And so over the next few years, we have the battle. We still have to battle it out. And then eventually I was lucky enough to be named a starter. But it's just a crazy story. But it goes back to everything I always say. It's just hard work. Like, you put your nose to the grindstone. If they ask you to go out and throw it 1 million times, you do it.
And as far as going back to like being a college quarterback, seeing stuff there and seeing NFL defenses, is it just the speed? I know a lot of guys always say that, but what do you think it was for you? Was there any difference that you could like feel it, or was there just the guys are so smart on defense, and like what is it about the NFL defenses?
Well, let's just put it this way: if you're playing 11 versus 11, and like Tulsa's playing Louisville,
right,
you probably got maybe 4 or 5 guys on each side of the ball that are probably NFL worthy, right? That are pretty good. And you're playing with other guys that, like, you're throwing to some receivers that are 5'6" and things like that aren't great. You know what I mean? Like, there were just things like that. But when you get to the NFL, every position is great.
Right.
There is no room for error. If there's a mistake, a slip, it causes the whole thing to fall apart. So when they talk about trust and understanding the guys you're playing with, like, you all have to trust each other, because one little mistake, the cake's not going to come out right. So everybody has to be on the same page, and it's hard because there's new parts every year. So I think the NFL is just, it turns it up a notch. The speed is because every position is at the max, right? It's not like up and down. Everything's at the max. You put your volumes all the way up, and you got to be able to go out and do it. And a lot of guys can do it in practice, but game speed is really another thing, right? When the guys aren't just like, the defensive ends aren't just tapping you on the shoulder in practice, right? Now they're putting their helmet between your numbers and you're eating dirt and you're like, oh, I can't feel anything, but you got to get up and make the next throw.
Yeah. And this is before they were protecting quarterbacks, right? You were still in the hit.
I was kind of in the in-between stage where they were just kind of starting to.
Yeah.
But still now, I took my share, and I'm like, and you turn around and look at the ref like, that's not a penalty. And he's like, nope. And I'm like, I think sometimes it goes off your name too.
Yeah. Well, that for sure it does. Yeah. So you mentioned you played for Norv Turner. I think he's been known as an offensive guru type of guy. I think you said you didn't have the best relationship with him. I didn't play organized football or anything, but was it X and O's with a different mentality? What do you think was the rift between you and Norv?
To be honest, I think it was a few things. I think it was, I wasn't his pick.
Yeah.
Right. I was the general manager, Charlie Castlety's pick. And it doesn't mean anything really. You're just on the team, and
Sure.
it's all business. And obviously, I think Norv really wanted Heath to do well. And he had some tough decisions to make. Do I play my starter, my first round pick, no matter what, or do I play the guy that might be better? I don't know. So I think that was hard for him. And our personalities didn't match up. We're off the field, we didn't really get along. We were very different, like outside of the facility.
Okay.
In the facility, he had a lot of respect for Norv because his brain was amazing. His play calling, the way he looked at the game, he was super smart. He just kind of knew when they were blitzing, but there were just certain things that we didn't mesh. And then when definitely after the headbutt incident, we kind of really fell apart because he got really upset. It's the reason we lost the game, and all this stuff. But, I think after that, we just kind of were on shaky ground and didn't really talk to each other. And that's hard going into work every day having the guy that you have to look at, your head coach, in your meetings, not really wanting you to be there.
Right. And perfect segue. That's where I was going to go next. And I appreciate you letting me talk about this. You had a famous headbutt into the wall after you celebrated a touchdown. You ran one in. You're playing the Giants, a big game. And you hit the padding, but it's something behind it where it caused you to like get a stinger or like a concussion almost. Obviously not, your favorite moment of your career, but it was something that people remember. So I wanted to let you kind of tell us about, it wasn't just that, it was just like you were talking about, there's way more behind it, with the drama on the team. So what do you remember about that?
Well, I tell my kids all the time, look, your dad's going to be on ESPN for the rest of his life,
for something.
Yeah. For something, right? So, and it's something that we all just laugh about and you deal with it. It happened to you, you can't hide from it. And I always say, it's not like I went out and did something illegal or, I was arrested or it was an accident that happened on a football field. Right. Yeah. And so I kind of laugh about it and I have a lot of fun with it, but you're right. There were a lot of tension going on at that point with myself and Norv, and we're playing the Giants, who's a huge rival for us. And I run a touchdown in and just kind of excited, didn't really know what to do, just go to jump off the wall and lead with my head and you're right, I got a stinger. And then I turn around and my tight end, Jamie Asher, slaps me in the head because he's super excited. We were good buddies, and he just smacks me in the side of my face. And then that just exacerbated it all. And when you get a stinger, if it would have been on my left shoulder, I probably could have survived it, but it was on my right side. So everything was, and you were a pitcher, right?
Yeah, but I never got a stinger though.
No, but like if you have shoulder soreness,
yeah,
and you can't, and your shoulder tightens up and your trap's tight, it just becomes hard, and then they took me away in an ambulance, and that makes it worse. And it was, there's 35 million people or whatever watching that game. I think it was a Monday night game.
Okay.
So it made it way worse than it should have been. And dealing with that in the Washington media was very difficult.
Yeah. I saw you, I think there was a compilation video where you're interviewing them and everyone's just giving you shit for that. It's just like, it wasn't even that big. Like it shouldn't have been that big of a deal, but it was.
Well, it was because I think our coach made it a big, he wanted to fine me. He wanted to say his conduct detrimental to the team. And I'm like, what about the guy that didn't show up Saturday night that was out drinking? I think that's way worse than what I did. Know what I mean? Like things like that. But it's everybody's opinion. That's what the media is there for. You're going to get scrutinized no matter what. Yeah. And, nobody's perfect. And so I think it just thickens your skin and makes you tougher. Yeah, especially being in DC.
Yeah.
And I look at these kids, they get drafted from these small markets to these huge markets. And, these reporters will ask anything. They're going to dig into your life. They're going to find it out. And they're going to ask you whatever they want.
Yeah. No, they definitely will. I wanted to move on to your next stop, which was Detroit. So you're the backup for, I think, Charlie Batch I saw in 1999. As fate would have it, Batch gets hurt, and you're in the wild card game against your former team, the Washington football team, in the playoffs. What do you remember about the kind of that matchup where you're facing your old team again?
Well, we played them earlier in the year, and we smoked them in Detroit. Like we had a really good game. I was, that kind of broke it up for me going into this playoff game because we already played them, and all the things about, the talk about the headbutt and everything. But then we have to play them in Washington. So, we go to Washington, and the fans are insane there.
I'm sure.
In a good way, like they're for their team, but they were also very hard on me.
Sure.
That's just kind of how life is. I mean, there's bullseyes and everything else you could imagine. But we go there. I thought we matched up well because we played them early in the year. But then I dropped back the first snap in the game that we throw it, and I just get lit up. And my pinky on my right finger is sticking straight out to the side. Oh. And I'm going, oh, God, what the heck happened? And my fullback comes back in the huddle, and he goes, hey, sorry, that was me. I should have blocked that guy. And I'm like, oh, it's going to be one of those days, right? And so you're just gone. I had to call a timeout because I had to go get these two fingers taped, put them back in place. And then you play the rest of the game and end up getting pulled. It just wasn't it wasn't our day. And which is sad to say because we had a lot of great players on that Detroit team. We had Herman Moore, Johnny Morton. That was the year Barry Sanders didn't come back, and we still had, very good parts to our team, and our defense was exceptional that year. And we were the only team that year to beat the Rams, and they won it all. So I felt pretty good about that season.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's definitely a great run there. I wanted to move on to your next stop was just Denver. You had one of the best games of your career against the Chargers. I think it was November of 2000, where you guys won 38-37. You had 5 touchdowns, 462 yards. What do you remember about that game?
Man, that was an up and down game. You say 5 touchdowns, but you didn't mention the 4 interceptions.
I did not.
But that's how it was. It was an emotional roller coaster. That was really the first game where came in and Coach Shanahan got to see, like, all right, under pressure, coming back, throwing interception. What's he going to do? And that was really the only game where Mike ever changed his play calling for me. Because West Coast is very different than what I was used to with North Turner. And even the Lions were digit system and throwing, big passes, comebacks, and big play action. And the West Coast really isn't like that per se. They can change it up for you. But so we were behind a lot. And so we had to throw the ball downfield to catch up. And it was working. And so we were just connecting with Rod Smith, Ed McCaffrey, tight ends, everything was working. Had a big 4th down and 2, and I check it down to the back. He gets the first down, and things like that were happening. And then just we have an opportunity at the end of the game and to go win it. And I throw a touchdown to Ed McCaffrey in the back of the end zone, and we win the game. And it was crazy emotional. That was like Ryan Leaf's big comeback game. And I feel bad that, what happened in his career, but you're out there playing and a good friend of mine, Scotty Turner, was the DB. We played together in Washington and then went to the Chargers. I threw a slant route that he intercepted, and Scotty ran a 4.3 40, and I tried my hardest, but I couldn't catch him. That was just the day. Like, sure. You dive, and be like, okay, it's not going to be one of those days. But man, what a game! And Mile High Stadium is just incredible. When the fans get rocking and rolling and the game is going, it's very loud.
Was that one of your favorite places to play? Mile High?
Yeah, so Mile High would be right up there. My favorite ever was RFK in Washington.
Yeah.
And then Mile High was awesome. I absolutely love playing the Raiders, going out there to play.
In Oakland?
In Oakland.
Yeah.
Just driving in, seeing the fans, they're wearing their gear during the game. They're heckling you. And it just was always so much fun. And the hardest place to play for me, there were a lot of domes that were really loud, but you would work on it, right? You would work on like silent
noise.
Things. Yeah. But when you go to Kansas City, it's outside, and Kansas City is crazy loud. And I've played there several times, and it's just like, it's, at the beginning of the game, you say the national anthem at the end, and it's a home of and they go Chiefs. And it just rocks your whole body. It's crazy.
So they say there Arrowhead and Seattle's got the two loudest stadiums. I don't know if that Seattle stadium.
12 man's pretty good. I
yeah.
mean, anywhere, I mean, obviously you get 70,000 people in one place, it's going to be pretty loud.
Right, exactly. Real quick, just off topic here, but about the West Coast offense. For those of us, like, I've heard that term a lot, but can you explain a little bit the difference between like what Norv Turner was running versus what the true West Coast offense means?
Well, look, there's no throw that you haven't thrown, right? It's all the same. It's different terminology.
Okay.
West Coast is more like, I'm going to say a bunch of words to throw the flat route, right? And it's more than that. Like it's just a different way to play the game, right? Norv Turner was, hey, we're going to line up with a fullback. We're going to try and run the ball. We're going to have power plays. We're going to have big play action off that, throw the ball downfield. And there's some West Coast kind of feel to it, but West Coast is more like double slants, throwing it quick, throwing it out. Like, and then the biggest difference between them is in the Norv Turner digit system, if they bring more than you can protect, like you just throw, it's just a hot read or, you know, it's a sight adjustment, right? Where the receiver comes in, the receiver has to see it too, and you have to make a quick throw to get it out.
Right.
Where in the West Coast, there's none of that. It's all built in. So if they're blitzing from your right, but your flat route is to the left, you got to throw it to the left, right? Because that's your only place to get rid of the football. So some of that was hard to get used to for me.
Okay.
But I mean, we could talk about it all day, and then it goes off the coaches, right? Every coach coaches differently. Some coaches say, we're not that worried about what you're looking at on defense. You know, we know that you got to look at the secondary, what coverage they're in, and that dictates where you're throwing a football. Some coaches are like, you got to know the defensive linemen, you got to know where the linebackers are, and it all is put together, and it all tells a story. And so you have to figure that story out in about 15 seconds.
Yeah, things happen quickly. No, okay. So I appreciate you explaining a little bit of that, just because, like, you know, there's a lot of terminology that we hear, but we don't know what it means.
Right. I don't think I know what it means either.
Right? Yeah. Honest. Over the next 6 years or so, you kind of bounced around, stopping in Cincinnati, Minnesota for the first time, Miami, St. Louis, and then Minnesota again. What was it like every season, not knowing if you had job security, if you're fighting to be the starter, you had no clue and you made a bunch of stops? What was that like through that stretch?
Well, it's difficult because, you know, we had kids, my wife Ann and I had kids early. And which was great, you know, because they're all out of college now and I'm going to be 50, which I have friends who are turning 50 and their kids are like 4.
Yeah.
And I couldn't imagine doing that now.
Yeah.
But, you know, and my biggest concern always was not like going to a new team and, you know, creating friendships and getting to know guys in the locker room. That came easy to me. I can't like just BSing in the locker room, getting to know guys.
Sure.
I didn't have a problem with that. It was okay. I got to go leave my family and work out there in the off season. I got to find a new place to live. We got to move, right? All during the season because I wasn't going anywhere without them. A lot of guys would just, and my only year I did it was my last year when I played in Minnesota because my kids were in high school, right? And they're going into high school and they didn't want to, they were like, Dad, I'm not moving again. You know what I mean? So you're like, you get it. But that was the hardest part for me is taking my family everywhere, figuring that out. And then, once that is kind of settled, which it never is, sometimes you bought a house, sometimes you rent a house. And so you had normal problems that every family deals with when you move or whatever, you know, things break and you got to deal with that. But then you're learning a new system, you're learning a new language. So when you go to a new team, a new coach has a playbook. Everything's like I said, you've handed the ball off like that before, you've thrown the ball before. But it's all called something different. So all of a sudden you're learning a new language in a couple months. And that makes it even more difficult.
So for you, like in the preseason, how, like, I'm sure those games were really important, right? Like those first few games before the main starter usually does a little bit in the fourth game. But was that real? Those first 3 preseason games back when they were doing that, like, what was that like? You felt like I had to do well in each one of those to make sure I get a spot?
The older I got, no, but yeah, definitely when I went to new teams when I was younger, you want to go out there and show everybody that you know what you're doing under pressure, and you want to make it as game-like as possible, so that if you do get in a game, you're ready to play. You know, and and you never know what happens. Like you go out and have an incredible preseason and the coaches say, hey, I want this guy's the starter. So you just work hard and you go out and you make it every play count. For me, I always had a lot of fun. If I wasn't playing after the games with my guys and joking around, doing those kind of things. But when you're there and you're in the building and you're doing those things, you try to make it as serious as possible because it is short-lived. I was really lucky. I don't know why they kept me for 15 years in the NFL, but I was really lucky that I got to play that long because it doesn't, the average is like 2.8 now, something like that. It's really quick.
Yeah.
But I just enjoyed every minute of it. And, so there was good and bad in all of it, but that's just life.
Sure. And real quick before we move to your Minnesota stop again, as far like when I watch Hard Knocks, like, they get the few quarterbacks in the room and, they got to get down to 3. That's tough because you can't get all the reps all the time. So like, how do you have enough time to show if you're a fringe guy, if you're a backup or not?
Well, I'll tell you this, when I was a rookie, right, we're in the off season. And Schuler's taking all the first team reps. He's the first round quarterback.
Yeah.
This is not training camp yet, right? This is just off season stuff. And when you're like the second or third string quarterback, you're going to throw scout team, they call it. So the starting defense is out there. You're running the other team's plays.
Right.
And the coaches will hold up cards. They'll hold up a card. It'll be the play, and then they'll have a spot circled. We want you to throw it here. Well, they have this perfect defense for that throw, right? So it never gets completed or whatever. So I'm doing that. I'm doing like what the coaches are telling me because you want to make the team. And Darryl Green comes up to me and he says, look, I know you're trying to do what the coaches are telling you, but A, you're not making yourself any better by not reading the defense. And B, you're not making me any better by throwing it to the proper place.
Right.
Right. And so he said, look, if any coaches get on you, and Darryl's a Hall of Famer, just been playing forever, was one of the greatest corners ever. And he said, any coaches give you flack or whatever, you tell them that we'll come talk to them. And so from that point on, I read it like I was in a game, right? I would try to beat the defense, throw touchdowns, do all those things, because that's the only way you get better. Now, the defense coaches would get pissed off.
Sure.
But that was for me. Like, I didn't care. Like, that defensive coach wasn't going to say, hey, you should keep this kid, right? It was up to the offense coach, and it's up to you to go out and prove that every time. And so if I got any young kid and he, you have to take advantage of every opportunity. Go hold for the kickers, right? Go out and special teams, try to run and, be the scout team for special teams. Do anything you can to make the team, because once it's over, they're not bringing you back.
Right. No, I think it's a great point. And you definitely took advantage of that. I want to skip to 2008. So you're back in Minnesota. Tavares Jackson's the starter. He gets hurt. Coach Brad Childress at the time sends you in. You go 8-3 in 11 games. You had a hell of a run there. You also had to, you had one of the coolest records in NFL history. I think you're tied with one or two other people with a 99-yard touchdown pass to Bernard Berry, former Bear, and you're playing the Bears. What do you remember about that play?
Well, that was incredible, because just playing in Minnesota in the Dome was always a great experience.
Yeah.
It was so much fun. The fans in Minnesota are incredible. The cities, I love the Twin Cities. It's just a great place to live. And being on the Vikings, I always really enjoyed the team, the atmosphere, everything. So we're going and we're playing the Bears, who's a big rival. Anytime you're in those games, even if you haven't been there that long, that there's something different about that game. So our defense makes a goal line stand, 4th down. They stop them at the 1-yard line. We get the ball, right? I'm thinking, okay, we're just going to hand it off to Adrian Peterson. Easiest thing in the world to do.
Right.
Just do it to him. And Darrell Bevell, who's our offensive coordinator, goes, we're going to run 999 F seam. And I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, we're going to run 99 F seam. And I'm like, all right, sweet. You never get that on the 1-yard line, right? So we go in, and they're giving us their cover 3 look. Like in that look, the corners a lot of times will cheat because they have to play the outside and the seam route where the tight ends are running along the hash. And I just stared down our tight end, Vasante Shenko, and noticed that Tillman was cheating. And I just let it go over his head to Bernard, who ran a great route. I mean, the dude's super fast, could run. And it was like, they teach you when you throw a go route, you're supposed to throw it 45 yards, land it this far from the sideline. That's where we want it, right? And it like that all happened in that moment in my 15th year in the NFL. Throw that route, it goes perfect. Bernard didn't even break stride, and the place erupts, and it was just crazy. We go on to win the game, but it was just an amazing time, and that play, somebody took a panoramic picture when I let the ball go from behind out of the end zone. Somebody took a picture of the whole place, all my linemen blocking, and they came up after the game or during the week, and they showed me the picture. And I said, can you get me, like 15 of those? And I blew them up really big, and I framed them all. And I got frames, and I had all my linemen, everybody that was on the field with me at that point, sign it. They all signed where they were, whatever. And I gave it to my offense coordinator, my quarterback coach, the head coach, and I gave one to everybody that was on the field with me, because that's just like a moment that everybody always wants to do, but it rarely ever happens.
That's an amazing. I mean, I don't know how many of those there are. There aren't that many 99-yard touchdown passes. So,
passes and runs. I think there's 12 total or something like that.
Yeah. Speaking of running, you mentioned playing with Adrian Peterson, even if just for the 1 year. What do you remember about having him in the backfield, right behind you?
Just an incredible player, strong, fast. He just had a knack about him. Never complained, just ran hard, loved to work, and his handshake was like no other. The first time I ever met Adrian Peterson was in a hallway in the old Vikings facility. Excuse me. And I walk up to him and say, "Hey, Adrian, how you doing? Gus Frerotte, nice to meet you." He shook my hand. I almost went down on one knee because he just had this amazing grip. And I never knew how, like, he would fumble. Everybody fumbles, but I just, like, he was so freaking strong. The dude did used 90-pound dumbbells and did box jumps. Like, just try to pick a 90-pound dumbbell up, not let alone jumping with it. Right.
Yeah.
So he was just super strong, great kid. And I remember we were playing the Packers in Minnesota, and we got to have a fourth quarter drive to score a touchdown to win the game. And I just turned to him in the huddle and I said, "Dude, I'm throwing a ball to you every play, right? You don't have to throw it downfield." Like, as you get older, you learn that stuff. And so I just literally four out of the 5 plays I threw it to Adrian, and he got first down, and we end up winning the game.
No, that's pretty cool, man. That's awesome. A nice luxury to have him back there.
Definitely.
Before we get back to some other football stuff, in 2011 you become a coach, a high school coach, and you're at, I believe, John Burroughs High School in St. Louis. While you were there, you got to coach Ezekiel Elliott, of all people. What are the odds? What do you remember about now you're not playing anymore, you're a coach now, and also with Zeke and the other NFL player that you had there as well?
Yeah, Foye Oluokun is the other guy. So when you go from the NFL to high school, you have to learn real quick to kind of tamper down your terminology.
Yes.
Because you're used to speaking a certain language, right? And guys get it. So you shorten your verbiage. You can have shorter talk because they understand what you're saying. Well, when you're talking to a 16-year-old who barely has played football and you're trying to stay at this high level, you have to really change it. So I really changed how we did things at Burroughs. I loved it because they gave me a little freedom to, like, there was no room that the guys could watch. We go in and watch film and do things. There was no room for us. So I took a closet. I said, "Can I empty this closet? Can we move it all out?" I painted the walls with, the grease board paint, and really just tried to give the guys knowledge that they never had before. They're all smart kids. But when you're in high school, it changes. You're not going to run all the same plays you did. But we had fun. And Zeke, he was easy to coach. He was super smart, knew the game of football. Like, you could tell him, "Hey, go show that right tackle how to step." and he'd put his feet the right way, and he'd drop, he'd step the right way. And I could do that with any position. He knew it all, offense or defense, whatever. He was just a special kid, and we knew that. He was super fast and just had great agility where, he can make people miss all the time. And then the other kid, Foye, he was a skinny kid, loved basketball, never really wanted to play football, had these huge feet. And I remember when Yale came and recruited him, they wanted him to play hoops. And the basketball coach was super upset at me. He's like, he's playing basketball. I said, Coach, there's a ton of 6'3" kids trying to play basketball, right? There's not a ton of 6'3" kids trying to play defensive back in college. And Foye has enough athletic ability that if he grows into his body, he could make it, right?
Yeah.
His opportunity to make it in the NBA was probably very small.
Right.
But it's bigger in the NFL. So he went to Yale, he played defensive back, then ended up playing safety. And then he came out and didn't think he had an opportunity, but when he worked out as a linebacker, he was top 5 in every category as a linebacker. So he was drafted by the Falcons, and now he's starting for them, and he's huge. He's like 240. He's like a 4.4. And I'm like, dude, it's like crazy. And there's Zeke, who is Zeke. Everybody knows him. And there's the 2 kids, that all these kids, we had 28 kids. We didn't have 28 athletes, that we were at a small private school.
Sure.
And, there's these two kids that became NFL players now for years that all these kids got to play with and know really well and are friends with.
And you guys, I think you were runner-up twice in a state championship?
Three times.
3 times.
Yeah, that was rough. And, the one game, Ezekiel breaks the record for most total yards in a game, where it's like 450 or some crazy number.
Wow.
And we lose by touchdown, and it's just like, we were playing a team that didn't turn the ball over. They just ran it and were big up front, and we were tiny. We ran a 3-5 defense and blitzed, and that's how we made our money. And we tried to outscore teams, and we didn't outscore them that day.
And I'm sure. So, I mean, obviously Urban Meyer recruited him. Was every school in the country recruiting Zeke back then?
Yeah. Every coach would call. And, both his parents were incredible athletes at Missouri.
Okay.
And
so there was some pull there, maybe.
When it came down to it, it was like Ohio State, Missouri. That was his pick. Like, it was going to be one of those, because I think he had a very big pull to kind of go to where his parents went. And they came, like Missouri came all the time. Big bus pulled up in front of the school. Kids there, they don't it's not like a super athletic school, right?
Right.
So when that stuff happened, it was big time. And then Zeke chose Ohio State, which I can't blame him, because it worked out incredible for him.
Great program. Yeah. I want to move to you now podcasting the last couple of years. So you started it. It's called Huddle Up with Gus. And you've had tons of people on of all kinds of backgrounds. What's been maybe some of your favorite interviews, or some of your things you learned from doing it, or what's it been like being a podcast host now that you're stepping away from football and everything that goes into it?
Yeah, it's been great for me, just because I'm not coaching anymore. I'm not really that, and my sons have graduated from college and all that.
Yeah.
And I think it's just been great to connect with people, because I can still talk football. I can still talk baseball. I can talk whatever, because my show is something that it involves people in sports. So I've had doctors on who played sports through college, and then they became these incredible doctors, but sports had such a big impact on their lives. So I love it from the standpoint that it lets me connect with a lot of people, where the NFL and coaching and those kind of things always let me do that as well. But now I'm doing it in a different way, and I get to tell stories like you're doing, and you get to ask the questions you want to know, right? Sometimes you think about your fans or the people that have listened to your show, and you want to ask questions that they might want to know.
Right.
But for most part, I try to let it go where it goes, and I want to ask the questions that I want to know, like that I think are interesting. And so that's kind of what it's about. It's been a crazy trip. We've done it over 2 years. It's a lot of work. Do an hour interview, and then do the editing and put it out on all the different social media, do it out on your platform, YouTube.
Right.
And then, it's something that you want to make money from. Right. So that is another experience for me. I'm not a guy that loves to go up to people and say, hey, give me $10,000 and I'll let you sponsor my show. Like, it's just not in me. Right. And I just like interviewing people like you and I talked about beforehand. Yeah. And so it's just been a lot of fun. I usually use interns from local colleges that want to do something in sports.
Sure.
And they help me out. And, because the kids today, they can do all the technology stuff that I can't do.
Right. No, that's great. It's good that you found some people to help you out. But the pure, the passion side is reconnecting with maybe former teammates or other, quarterbacks or whatever. I think that's the fun part. Same for me, former teammates and coaches and sports psychologists and all that stuff. And I think that stuff is great. I want to go through some quick hitters before we go. So, favorite organization that you played for over your career?
Oh, that's a good. People ask me that. There's 7, right? So that's very difficult.
Right.
And there was good and bad with all of them.
Sure.
But I always go back to Washington just because that was the team that drafted me and took the chance on.
I totally agree with that. I know you mentioned Mile High. Favorite stadium to play in, as far as like where you're just the place you got the most energy from playing in?
Obviously, it's RFK.
Yeah.
In DC. We built the new stadium. So I played in the last game at RFK, played in the first game at the new stadium. But RFK was something special with the bleachers bouncing. They had the band there that was, were dressed all like they used to dress. They had the hogettes, so these guys would come and they'd wear these pig noses. And it was just, the atmosphere was so intense and crazy that it was always my favorite place to play.
Because you played there and you've seen kind of the last, 15 years of Washington football, what do they need to do? Like, what needs to happen there? Are they just keep missing on quarterback? Like, what do they need to do?
Well, it seems like they've always missed on one part.
Yeah.
Somewhere here or there. I love what Coach Rivera's doing. I think he's a good coach for the team.
Yeah.
I think that maybe the organization from the top down struggled a little bit in one way or another. And it felt last year that they were a little different. Like maybe the owner stepped back a little bit, trust the coach that he's going to put a good team together, trust the general manager that he's going to get the good players. And so I think that this year I see them it's going to be an incredibly competitive division.
Yeah.
With the Eagles and the Giants and the Cowboys. But I think they got the right parts now. I think I love Ryan Fitzpatrick coming in. He's always a great mentor. He always puts a lot of energy into the team.
Yeah.
And, in Washington, they've had some good quarterbacks come through there. But you're right. They've always been missing a little part. And I just hope this is the year where they, get it back.
I mean, everyone really thought with RG3, like Robert Griffin III, that was going to be, all right, here we go. Washington's back. We got our guy. And he was exciting his rookie year, right? I mean, they were great, but unfortunately the injuries just got him.
Yeah, injuries. And I think the same thing, he kind of fell out of it with coach, with Coach Shanahan, and it didn't work out like they thought.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Speaking of coaches, favorite coach of all time, or maybe coordinator, or whoever that was your favorite to play for?
I mean, I've had a lot of great coaches, been around a lot of incredible people, but I always give a lot of credit to my first quarterback coach, Cam Cameron.
Oh yeah.
So Cam and I, we both came in the NFL at the same time. We were both rookies, and he liked to coach. I love to work hard, so it made a good situation. We lived by each other. We got along off the field. So I think that Cam, I give him a lot of credit for helping me become the quarterback I was.
Who do you think was like the smartest, had the highest NFL IQ that you would say that you played with? Coach-wise.
Played with?
Yeah.
Coach?
I'm sorry, played for, yeah.
I mean, you don't get to that level when you can't, obviously there were better coaches than other coaches,
because Coach Shanahan gets a lot of love, right? I mean, he
knew the system in and out, right? I think that he did such a good job of being a coach, being a business guy, doing all those things, but he knew the system so well that he let Gary Kubiak take over, and he brought a lot of other coaches under him.
Yeah.
And he learned from some incredible coaches. But he was very smart. Like all the coaches that I played for, were incredibly smart. Like Sylvester Crooms in Detroit, like the way we ran the offense and the players we had. And I think what makes a coach really, really good is knowing his parts, because he has a system. And if he just runs his system, he's not always going to have the right parts. So you got to be able to switch and adjust as you go.
Yeah.
You know, it's like in Pittsburgh back in the day, there were only rear-wheel drive cars and everybody knew how to drive in the snow. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And you just learned, and that's what you had to work with. And you didn't try to say, okay, I got an all-wheel drive car and I can go anywhere. You just knew your limitations. And sometimes football coaches just going to run their system no matter who's at the quarterback position or who's the running back or what lineman you have, right? And that can't always be the case.
Right. How about favorite NFL play other than the 99-yard touchdown or moment you remember?
Oh, well, there's so many. It's hard to say, but like I said, we beat the Cowboys in the last game at RFK, and then the first game of the next year we beat the Cardinals in dramatic fashion at the stadium. So those two plays for me, that being a part of that history, well, I just loved it.
That's a good one. Let's go to the current NFL. Who do you think? Who do you like watching quarterback-wise the best in this current NFL right now?
Well, I mean, they're all throwing it, right? But last year for me, I mean, Aaron Rodgers incredibly obviously won the MVP. But I just thought, like, when I loved watching Justin Herbert play. You know, here's a kid that nobody gave him he wasn't going to be great. Nobody said this, and he comes in, he just tears it up, and he wings it, man. He just putting it downfield. And for me, that reminded me of me, like, you're just letting it loose. And he's so athletic, so big, that he just makes so many great throws. And it was a lot of fun watching him play last year.
I totally agree with you. When I watched his Rose Bowl and he kind of ran a lot, and I was just like, I don't see it. Like, I'm not an NFL, like a quarterback.
Right,
like,
right.
I
think that's what a lot of people said.
I was like, he's top 5. But he was awesome last year.
Yeah, he was incredible, and he definitely deserved Rookie of the Year.
How about when you watch Patrick Mahomes? What do you think when you see him?
I love him, just throwing from any angle.
Yeah.
Just such a good leader. You know, just being able to make every throw out there, and just not crazy mechanically sound. I had to be more mechanically sound to be able to do that stuff.
Yeah.
He can throw from any angle, any position, you know, and that comes from throwing baseballs, and his dad was a pitcher and things like that, or a baseball player, I'm pretty sure. But he just has a good sense of the game. You watch him, he knows where you know, it's just like he kind of knows what's going on. When he scrambles, he feels it really well. He gets out of danger really well. And he just does some things that it's just hard to teach.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about, so I know you mentioned Rodgers. Obviously, I am a big fan of his just as the type of player he is. But when you did you ever get to play in game against Brady or Peyton Manning, either of those two?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you played against, or I'm sure you watched their film, like what does separate them? Is it just the IQ of they've seen so many defenses, they've kind of diagnosed it really quickly, or what makes them different?
Well, like Tom is just Tom. I mean, he gets rid of the ball quick. He doesn't take a lot of hits. But, you know, he has so many accolades. Like, he could throw it away. You know, there's games where they've punted 6 times in a row. And it's just like, okay, we're going to be all right. You know what I mean? It's just Tom. It's how he always was. And he just ends up, he's a winner. And same with Peyton. You know, Peyton's last year when he was with Denver, they won a Super Bowl. Man, my man probably couldn't throw it 20 yards.
Yeah, he didn't have
but
much
he got
left.
it done. He was a leader. He threw it to the right person, threw it in the right spot, and was able to manage the game at a high level.
Yeah.
Put him in the right place, you know, be a great leader on the field. And those are the things that, you know, those two guys are just incredible at, right? It's just something that their makeup is different than anybody else.
Yeah, I agree with that. How about some of the toughest defensive players you've played against? Maybe guys you're like, God, I like it's gonna be a tough day today, or just watching film, you're like, that guy is unbelievable. So just
there are, believe me, everybody on defense is incredible. You watch, you know, but it's more the team defense,
right?
Like that, all the parts are are playing as one when you play those teams. Like when I was with Denver and we went to Baltimore the year they won the Super Bowl.
Was that like 2000?
Yeah, that defense was incredible.
Yeah.
Like you're like, where are we going to throw it? Like they sit on everything. You don't have time in the pocket, right? And you got to be mistake free to beat them. And they showed that, and we played awful, but we played the best against them in the playoffs. Right. And I was kind of like, man, this team is just incredible. So I think it's more because, I've played against Deion Sanders, played against great players all over, but there's just, when it's a great defense, it's going to be a long day.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you there. So just last thing on your podcast, where can everybody find it or, follow you on if there's social media or anything like that. So they can hear Huddle Up with Gus.
Yeah, they can follow the podcast at Huddle Up with Gus on any social media platform. It's the same everywhere. They can go to huddleupwithgus.com. That's my website, and check it out there, and they can like and subscribe it to the show there. We've had over 100 guests, and people from Matthew McConaughey to my first guest ever was Roberto Clemente Jr. So I've had some incredible people on. And if you want to follow me, it's just at Gus Frerotte on anything. And, I'm on LinkedIn and do it all. And we have a YouTube channel, but we're not fully immersed in that like you are. We're trying to get there. So hopefully my next intern will be YouTube certified.
There you go. I'm not even YouTube certified. I'm young, but I'm old. It's tough for us out here.
I hear you.
Well, thank you, Gus. It was a lot of fun. I appreciate you being on the show, man. And I appreciate you stopping by. It was great.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on, Brett. Take care.
You too. And before we go, once again, I'd like to thank our new sponsor, VegasSportsAdvantage.com. They send out expert picks daily, and they help clients win big. Click the link below or in the bio, wherever the comments you can find, where you can use my promo code TOOTALL. That's TOOTALL. It's one word. You get 25% off all the text packages today. So once again, my promo code to get 25% off the service. TOOTALL. It's one word, TOOTALL, and you get 25% off for your texting packages. They got great plays. They text you the picks right before the game starts. You go bet them on your own sports book or sports betting website. I use the service. It's going great so far. So highly recommend. These guys have been awesome to me. So VegasSportsAdvantage.com. Make sure you use promo code TOOTALL so you can help the show as well as help yourself make a lot of money this year on sports bets. Thanks again. My thanks to Gus Frerotte. I hope you guys really enjoyed that. First time I had an NFL quarterback on the show, so that's really cool. Give you a little behind the scenes of what it was like as a backup quarterback in the NFL. 15 years, a hell of a run. So my thanks to Gus, and please go check out Huddle Up with Gus podcast. I believe it's on sounder.fm, but you can find all the links through his social media. Just look up Huddle Up with Gus. You'll find it. He's got a website, so go ahead and check him out. But my thanks to Gus Frerotte. Great episode with him today. As always, you can follow me at Too Tall Sports Podcast. That's on Instagram. On Twitter, it's at Too Tall Sports. Go ahead and hit me up over there. Feel free to drop a comment anytime. I love the feedback. I love to hear from you guys, especially my loyal listeners who listen every week. I really appreciate you guys. So I love to hear what you guys liked and didn't like, whatever. Just hit me up. I'd love to hear from you. If you want to email me, it's tootallsportspodcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to watch the interviews, we post them on YouTube. Just go over to our YouTube channel, Too Tall Sports Podcast. You can subscribe there. That would be great. Always trying to add more subscribers. You can hit the bell notification to get notified every time we drop an episode, which is usually Thursday mornings at 9 a.m. Pacific time. Go ahead and check that out. If you want to listen on the audio side, it's Apple Podcasts and Spotify, among others. But if you're on Apple Podcasts, scroll down if you haven't already. Hit the 5 stars on our episodes page. I believe it's toward the bottom. You can find those 5 stars. Also, drop a comment, leave a review. That would help out as well. Love to get more exposure for the show. So if you guys have time to do that, at least hit the 5 stars. It takes 2 seconds. You're already on the app. On Spotify, you can also listen there. Nothing to do except for follow and subscribe. That'd be awesome. If you want to listen on Pandora, we're there. If you want to listen on Amazon Music, Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts, just type in Too Tall Sports Podcast. Really appreciate it, and we'll see you next week for another great episode. Thanks.